Song for the Imps. How about a song for the Imps? There we go then. Come on, let's get some of the lads together. Let's have a good idea. Okay, you're on. Come on, fellas. Get around a go. Let's have a good go. Come on, then. Are you ready? Come on, you lot. Go on, then.
Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Lincoln City are the team, the Reds is their name. Stinsel is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you mad, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our...
All in all, seems funny seeing that picture of me at the on the nearly fell over on the picture there, the thumbnail thing of me in a hat and a coat. Beautiful warm day. I've got a hoodie on, don't really need it. Weather's been a bit changeable recently, hasn't it? I think I went to Grimsby yesterday, went there for a quite warm evening and left under an absolute torrential rain cloud. Like, I've put post Grimsby debrief as the title on this video. It's not really that at all. Didn't go to the game, didn't watch it either. Absolute reason, not interested. And that sounds really bad, doesn't it? Lincoln City fan site, not interested. At the end of the day, I think Mark Kennedy made it absolutely clear what last night was all about. Getting minutes in the tank of certain players. We had a look at some trialists. And that's what, I don't know really what more to say about it. Yeah, we lost 2-0. From what I've heard and from what I've seen, could have been the other way around if we hadn't missed chances and we'd taken a couple, but it really doesn't matter. When you 1 minute into the Bolton game a week on Saturday, nobody will give a toss what happened at Blundell Park last night. And there was quite a bit of reaction, I think, to Mark Kennedy saying it was essentially a training game. People saying that they felt they'd been conned and they felt that they'd been given their money to see a youth team. And yeah, I could understand it if it was a cup game. It's pre-season friendly. You take, I'd find it, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And if you went to the game and felt cheated because we started with 3 trialists and we looked disjointed, fair play. If you paid £5 on iFollow and you felt cheated, no one can change the way that you feel. But if you paid £5 on iFollow and were surprised at the product that was ended up being served up, not from iFollow, by the way, which I hear was really poor last night, I don't really get it. People saying, well, there's no commentary. It's a pre-season fucking friendly. Honestly, do you know what? There's not a lot that gets my goat, as you know. Forest Green, obviously, a few other little bits and bobs. But this, what I call mass overreaction to pre-season friendlies, is one. And I was a little bit guilty of it after the Boston game. I wanted to have a look at the team. I expected that it would be chopped and changed. I didn't think, well, I've been robbed on 60 minutes when half of the players went off and loads of others came on. It's pre-season. And it's bizarre because it's only something that's really been kind of heavily focused on, in my opinion, over the last 6 or 7 years with things like iFollow and live streaming. I think one of the first pre-season friendlies we streamed live was Salford, wasn't it, a couple of years ago, potentially? Was it Stockport? I can't remember now. I remember watching that on an afternoon at an empty stadium. And and then we went with another one against the non-league team. People are going, isn't it being streamed? Just no, they're training. The training games. Do you know what I mean? And that brings me to a point that I just can't get my head around this. I genuinely am baffled by this. Booing the team yesterday. Booing the team at half time of a pre-season friendly against, it doesn't matter who it's against. Okay, it's Grimsby Town, but against anybody. Oh my good God. They walk among us. I mean, it just, I cannot get my head around that. And there are some people I know who have gone to the game and were saying that there was complaints around them that we weren't getting stuck into tackles, that we weren't committing to this or that. Jesus Christ, can you imagine the complaints if one of our players had gone in for a 50-50 tackle and smashed his ankle or broken his metatarsal or something like that and missed the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season? Well, we shouldn't be playing these games. I saw comments on social media and stupidly, I went on social media and message boards and things last night, just because although I wasn't interested in paying for the game, I'm a Lincoln fan. I can't help it. It's an addiction. And oh my Lord, people saying, well, this is utter rubbish, pointless game. Why are we even doing playing here? The players that have started aren't going to be in contention. Why do they need minutes in their legs? Oh my good God. Do you know what I mean? Tell me you know nothing about football without actually saying the words. Jesus Christ. Honestly, last night exasperated me entirely from well before kickoff, like lunchtime-ish, when I first started kind of researching my article. And yeah, do you know what? I tried to trigger a little bit with the article about not caring about Grimsby. They're a rival. Of course, it's great to have them. We the world goes around on conflict. Every story, every movie, every book, it's about conflict. So to have conflict in football it's required. And when I said that I don't dislike Grimsby, of course I dislike Grimsby in that they're our local rivals. But in a pre-season friendly, oh no, not for me, not for me. And I honestly booing the team, criticising the manager, the selection. We've had an almost, in my opinion, an almost faultless pre-season. Almost. We've got minutes in the tank when we've needed. We haven't gone over and above in terms of the tackles. If we've kind of come up against a half decent side like Crewe, we've kind of matched it. I think we've had the right balance of games. Potentially we could have done with another one at home, but home form wasn't our problem last season either, was it? So I just kind of think, do you know what? I don't even think it's just a natural reaction that I wrote that article yesterday, and it was described by my good friend Pete as rubbish, because as far as he's concerned, his rivals, he's a Manchester United fan, he would rather that they didn't exist, that there was no rivalry whatsoever, that Leeds and Liverpool and Manchester City were just wiped off the face of the earth. I don't find that at all. And he said something about me tuning into the camaraderie of lower league football, and it was all bollocks and it was contrite, and he accused me of being like a particularly woke pundit on social media who will not name, who kind of loves and embraces everything, but that's not the case. I like football. I like atmospheres. It's all right if you're a Manchester United fan, because I'm going off on a tangent here, by the way, but if you're a Man United fan and you play Aston Villa, there's a big atmosphere at Old Trafford. If you play Brentford, there's a big atmosphere at Old Trafford. If you play Liverpool, there's a bigger one. But it's always an atmosphere. If you're Lincoln and it's a Tuesday night and you're playing MK Dons or Forest Green, it's fucking dead. It's dead. We don't have, the home fans don't have anybody to bounce off. It is. Play Grimsby Town in any competitive fixture whatsoever, and it's not. Of course, I want them to survive. Of course, I don't want Grimsby to fold. I want them to struggle all the time. I want them to be in the bottom three. I love it when they go down. The only downside of them going down is that usually it means they come up the next season and they're all cheery again. But their fans are only like us. Or are they? Would their fans have booed them off at half time of a 2-0? I'm not so sure. I've got to question that. And I'm going on about it a little bit too much, and I'll come on to the team and the trial list and bits and bobs in a minute, but I'm just baffled. I'm baffled. There's James Christopher, great guy. Me and James have butted heads on occasion in the past about different things, but not through, just through disagreeing about different opinions, rather than being, him being a booer, because absolutely not. Couldn't care less about pre-season friendlies. Means nothing more than a training exercise. If you're going to get upset, then don't bother going. And that's exactly right. And I think 90% of our fan base will feel the same way. But the 10% of our fan base that don't, that really worries me. Is that what social media and the technological world and the accessibility of football is creating? Is it really? Is that what it? Because if it is, then we need to put our phones in the bin. We need to, I hope Elon Musk does kill Twitter, and I hope that the other one who does Facebook, whatever his name is, Zuckerberg, I hope he kills that. I hope they kill all social media if that's what we're going to end up with. Pre-season friendlies used to be, for me, go to a couple and read about the others on the back of the Echo the next day, and it'd be 3 paragraphs, and you go, oh yeah, that's all right. And all of the trialists would be named. I'm going to come on to that in a minute. Matthew Walker, who cares? It's about getting minutes in the legs and looking at a couple of players, see if they can step up worth signing. What happens if MK pull full strength and House gets injured? Exactly. It's this might be an overreaction to a handful of people booing, but for me, it doesn't bode well for the new season. The players do not need to hear boos. They won 7-0 at Boston 10, 12 days ago, and they're getting booed off for trailing for a second string with 3 trialists, trailing 2-0 at Grimsby, when one of the goals, I understand, came from miscommunication between the 2 trialists playing on the left side of defence. Do you know what? I've got nothing to say, nothing more to say about that at all. If you're watching this live, watching it back, anything, and you booed the team, I'm happy for you to message me and explain why, and I'll message back and explain why you were wrong. So we lost 2-0 to Grimsby last night, penultimate friendly. If Ben's watching, that means second to last. It was, I think, a decent enough workout. Again, it's more minutes in the tank. We kick off in 10 days' time. We don't want any injuries. Charles Vernham, who showed his excellent finishing skills again last night by firing over in front of an open goal, was injured on the eve of the season last time, and I think it's set him back. He never really got into his stride once he signed for us and once he got up and running kind of a couple of months later. So it's important to make sure that we absolutely manage the amount or the minutes or the load that the players are getting in. So I think it was important in that respect. It was definitely important to give players like Charlie Kendall, like Jovan McCarmer, time on the pitch. Obviously, Alistair Smith didn't start on Saturday. I think he's going to be a great player for us, Smith. I really like the look of Smith. Just nice to see some of those players getting a run out. Nice look at some of the trialists. We know who one of the trialists is. It's not been officially confirmed, of course, but pictures, etc., seem to confirm that it is Nico Jones. So Jones was is a defender. He was at Fulham as a youngster. Then he moved to Oxford United in the academy. He got a full-time deal there. He spent time out on loan at Oxford City and Havant and Waterlooville when the 2 teams were in the National League South. Played just 8 times for Oxford United. Was their youngest ever captain at 19 in an EFL Trophy game a couple of seasons ago, but didn't make the grade there and was released. Was picked up by Brentford B, and that smells a little bit to me like when Tim Akinola ended up at Arsenal. If you remember, I think Brentford did away with their academy, which was a heavily criticised move at the time, but went to a B team, brought some more younger players in and tried to develop them through the B team. So Jones played 60 odd times for their B team, didn't really get near the first team, trained with them on occasion, but certainly didn't get anywhere near the first team squad for a competitive game and was released at the end of last season. So he looks, I think he's a left-sided centre-back. I would find it interesting if we signed a left-sided centre-back like Jones, who is kind of not unproven at this level, but unproven really at any level other than the Premier League B. It would surprise me. The problem we've got at left-sided centre-back is this. Sean Rowan has signed a deal with us. We intend to play him in that position. We intend to play him there so that he accrues value and hopefully somebody comes in and buys him. That is how I see it. So if we are to sign another left-sided centre-back, which we need, or cover at left wing-back, which we need, it has to be a player who's kind of on the fringes. But we also don't want to sign filler in the squad. So you don't want to sign a player who, with the greatest respect, is not really going to get a kick. I don't think the way that we are run financially allows us that flexibility to go, we'll take a punt on him, and him. And you look back at Remy Howarth a couple of years ago, he was kind of that type of player, and in and out of the side, nicest guy, didn't really add the significant value to the squad that perhaps we needed at the time. So that raises the question, what type of left-sided centre-back or left-sided or left wing-back, one of the two, bear in mind, but which do we sign? Well, is it a loan player? But if it's a loan player and you bring him in and he doesn't play, you're risking a relationship potentially. Is it a trialist like Nico Jones? Potentially that's the one you go down. Or do you go all out to sign a player who's got a decent reputation, who's going to come in and instantly challenge, fearing that he may dislodge Sean Rowan and then everything we've invested in Sean is wasted? I think it's a tough question. I really do think it's a tough question. So the other two trialists, as I understand, the names not entirely forthcoming. We know there was one that played, I think, at left wing back. And then there was the winger who had been named last night by several sources as Armstrong Okoflex. It's now questionable whether that's the case or not. I put an article out last night saying reportedly, and if it was him, it'd be a big thing. A contact that I have who kind of, we'll just say a contact that I have, suggested that he's got offers from League One, Championship and across in Europe. If that's the case, I can't see how he would be on trial at Lincoln City. I really can't. And I think a player like Armstrong Okaflex, if we were going to sign him, that would be quite a big coup for us. I mean, he played 13 times in the Championship for Swansea last season. He was electric for West Ham reserves. I see him ending up I'd actually see him somewhere like Celtic, but he started there. So I could see him ending up somewhere like the Dutch First Division or the very worst kind of a lower end Championship team, one of the teams that have just gone up, like an Ipswich or something like that. So we should see. And obviously, I don't think any of them particularly impressed. I think the attacker hit the bar. He looked most live wire. Again, from what I'm told, I didn't watch the game. I'm not going to pretend that I did. I'm not going to pretend I was interested in it at all, particularly. It is what it is. So it's behind us now. I fear that it is the first debate that we will have about booing the team of many. I think we live in a world now, not just football, of instant gratification, where you can't just watch one episode of a series, you've got to watch 10. You can't just watch one game, you can't just talk about one player, and if you've got an opinion, you've got to get it out there straight away, 100%. People sit at a game at half time and say how shit Lincoln are, and then we win 2-1 and they delete the tweets. Things like that happen. I've been guilty of it. I'm not saying that I'm above reproach, or beyond reproach. I'm absolutely not. We're all guilty of it. It's the world that we live in. But I think it's a concern for the upcoming season. And I think there was a comment, and it was in perfectly good faith. It wasn't from somebody who's likely to do it, but their comment was, if we get booed off at half time of Bolton, that's understandable, meaning of course that it's a competitive fixture and that's when it's okay to boo. I don't think it is, and the argument will come back about, I've paid my money. I have never booed Lincoln City off the field, and I can say that 100%. Fucking hell, I felt like it. Cambridge 0-0, not even a defeat, but Cambridge 0-0. We lost to Portsmouth a couple of years ago, I think under Michael Appleton, where we were, Charlie, we'll go back, where we were absolutely terrible. I felt like booing the players off, but I never would. I think it's counterproductive. And I think going back up here, I saw a comment from Steve Turner. Morning, mate. The reason our home form is so patchy, the negative fans we have. It's a minority, but a loud one. I think our home form actually last season wasn't too bad. We only lost twice all season, and I know that there was a lot of draws there, but I think that we were relatively solid at home. I think under Michael Appleton, it was our home form in the previous season when we went to the playoff final. We had some great home games, talented players. Charlie, come on. Talented players playing, attacking football. As soon as you put the fans in there, that kind of disappeared. And I remember turning up to that opening game against Fleetwood, the first one back after COVID, expecting and hoping to see this free-flowing Lincoln City that everybody had been watching on iFollow, and it just didn't happen. And I do think that the atmosphere can turn. And for everything positive that the 617 do and the rest of the fans, it only takes a few idiots to boo, and it might not even be audible at the other end of the field, but it takes a few idiots to boo, and our left back is the one that hears it, and it can just get in players' heads. I don't think there's ever a reason, not at half time. And even as poacher, I remember us playing Mansfield, I think it was, and I can't remember the year. Sorry, there's a tractor coming, I think. I can't remember the exact year that we played them, but it was they were about 2 or 3-0 up at half time. And I remember going out and sitting in the centre circle as poacher, mimicking what Nev Southall had done a few years before when he was at Everton. I didn't even boo at that point. Anyway, there we go. But no, to answer your question, Steve, I'm not sure about that. I do think sometimes there's more pressure at home. I think it's easier to turn a home crowd. Charlie, no. Going this way. Sorry. That way. I think it's easier to turn a home crowd I think it's easier in a bigger game. I think when we're in Sheffield Wednesday, that was obvious. So, no, I'm not sure. Not sure about that. Paul Mark, did the trialist impress? Pass. Heard 2 might have been at fault for 1 goal. Yep, same here, but must have been hard to turn up blind. Wouldn't have thought they'd turn up blind. I would have thought they'd probably been training for the club for a while. Yeah, I doubt that they would get a phone call and say, what are you doing this afternoon? Do you want to pop along and give it a go? I don't think it's like Sunday League. So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Steve says again, he totally agrees about last night. I think MK will step it up Saturday. I think on Saturday, we will have a largely experienced team against Rotherham. I think they will be as close to the first team for the opening game as we will expect. I think any new signings that we make in between now and the beginning of the season would be unlikely to start the opening game. I can predict the team for the opening day of the season. Right now, I think we will be Jensen. I think it'll be Sorensen and Brown on the flanks. I think it will be Rowan, Pordy O'Connor and TJ across the back. I think that it will be Smith and Arahan in midfield. And I think up front it will be House, Mandrew, and I'm going to go Rico Hackett. I think that's probably how we start against Bolton, as long as everybody's fit. I think Tyler Walker will get minutes on Saturday. I think we'll see him coming off the bench for the first 5 or 6 games of the season. It might start our first EFL trophy game, get 60 minutes and come back off. We're going to manage him very carefully. See, he's a long-term addition. I think deep down the club believe that probably Ben House could be the subject of bids come January, particularly if he has a good start to the season. And at that point, we need a ready-made first-team replacement. Who better than an on-form Tyler Walker? So I think that's where we are. Cornell says the booing was not called for. Absolutely not. Paul, Mark, if the season started this Saturday, do you feel we're a stronger 1-11 than the side that finished the last league game? Now, that's a really, really interesting question, because the answer is yes, I do. I think across the midfield, it's probably stronger. I can't remember the exact team that started the end of last season. But first of all, we own all of our players, which is interesting. I think that when players are owned by a club, they're playing for the club. I think when you get a loan player in, it can be 50-50. A loan player can sometimes be playing for themselves rather than the club. Classic example, I always felt Tashan was playing for himself a little bit, or not at all against Barnsley. I also think that Tyrese John-Jules perhaps was playing for himself a little bit. And sometimes you get a player like Tyler Walker, Joe Morrell, that you kind of fancy that are playing for the club. When you own all your players, you're probably a little bit stronger than when you're borrowing players anyway. Hard to say whether you're going pound for pound. Left back, Brown for Boys. Look, Boys had a good end to the season, didn't settle particularly quickly. Hard to say with Brown, a little bit more experienced, a little bit older. Across the back three, you could say that we're actually weaker. I think Rowan was playing left centre back anyway, but you had Regan Poole playing there. And if you take Regan Poole out and put TJ or Adam Jackson in, you would have done that last season if you got an injury. So technically across the back three, we're probably weaker. The wide positions, potentially not. I think in the midfield, we're stronger. And that's basing my opinion purely on the fact that I think Alistair Smith will be more of an attacking midfielder perhaps than Matty Virtue was. I really liked Matty Virtue, by the way. But I don't think that we're weaker in that respect. And when we started the 21-22 season, we were weaker than when we finished the playoff season. Bear that in mind. Up top, Ben House, well, again, no, not weaker there. Danny Mandrew, not weaker there. Same thing. So it depends who we play on the left. Same thing, Dylan Duffy was finishing at the end of last season. But obviously, we've signed Rico now as well to play there. A couple of other options. So no, I'm not entirely sure. I think that we are not far off how we were in terms of strength. I think that's huge when you own all of your players. So it's close. It's close. But again, I think that the advantage of not having loan players could be a significant thing. Let's have a look. So that's Chris Keneally. He says, like I said to you, mate, weeks ago, my massive hates people who get out of breath playing FIFA, telling a professional footballer that they're shite. Really pisses me off. Yeah, absolutely. Ben says there was a definite step up on golfing class when the subs were made in the second half. Kids, second stringers, and trialists aren't what this team should be judged on. MK said it was a training game and practically discouraged fans from going, yet they still boo. Yeah, again, can't argue with any of that at all. Shane says, has House got another year on his contract, or is it 2? He's definitely got a year. I would wonder if he's got a year with an option, but that seems to be the case, doesn't it? It was interesting, Hayden Can, the note that Hayden Can contract said he signed a new deal that will keep him to the club at least until the summer of 2024. An option seems to be the norm now. We obviously didn't have one with Regan Poole. I think he signed a 2.5-year deal when he signed, but I think he was one of those long-term deals, so I can't be 100% sure, to be honest. TL was there last night, and from my understanding, the trialists were left wing back and 2 centre backs. Thought Smith, Duffy, and TJ played well. See, I quite like TJ. I still think there's a hell of a player in TJ, and I think there is a player more suited to the right centre back position than any of the others. I think Jackson and O'Connor are suited to that middle centre back kind of rock, everything gravitates around me, whereas your 2 left centre backs need to have the ability to bring the ball out. And I'm not saying that Jackson and O'Connor don't do that, but I think that Rowan and TJ are more suited to playing on either side of a defender rather than a 2. If we were going 4 at the back and it was Rowan and TJ as our centre halves, I'd be a bit concerned about that. You'd rather see Jackson and O'Connor, but if you go in as a 3, we know what TJ Omer can do. He was outstanding the year that we got to the playoff final. He's a player that can reach the levels required to finish in the top 6 of this division. I think he's been a bit unlucky with injuries. His first season was a little bit of a challenge. He signed for us late. He never really got going. Last season, a few injuries and a few knocks. I like TJ. I like him a lot. He's got a big season ahead of him as well, hasn't he? I think it's the last one of his deal. It'll be the 3rd year of his deal. And as for Smith, everyone knows what I think about that. And Duffy, I really like as well. I think Duffy's got an air of the Harry Anderson about him. He's strong. He likes to get his head down. He likes to run with the ball. If we were going into the season with him as our starting winger, you would think, well, there's a lot of potential there. As it is, we're going in with him. I think being on the edge of the first team, coming off the bench, I think he's a big asset. I really do. Matt Walker agrees with my first team lineup apart from Jacko for TJ. Fair enough. People think that he will start. Shane says hopefully there's an option with House, otherwise January could be interesting. Absolutely. It really wouldn't surprise me to see Ben House move in January. And look, part of the club's model, and I hate that because it's the same with nearly every club at this division, unless you're bankrolled like a Fleetwood or something like that. But part of any sustainable club's business model is selling their good players for more than they bought them for and reinvesting that money. And Ben House is the ultimate saleable asset. He's a centre forward. He's a footballer's footballer. He's the sort of player that sometimes you see making a move and everyone will go, well, he doesn't score a huge amount of goals. Bear in mind, he was in double figures for last season without penalties. Let's not take that away from him. And he started the season as a central midfielder. For me, Ben House is a hugely saleable option. And if I'm honest, Danny Mandrew as well, because Danny Mandrew's got the flair and the ability to unlock defences. If those 2, let's say if those 2 coming into December have got 15 goal involvements between them, so if they've scored 7 with 7 assists or whatever between them, I mean, they'll be on penalties, so you might have to up that a little bit. People are going to be interested. Kevin McCarthy, big chance for Ted Bishop to play his favourite role if he can stay fit. I am concerned about Ted in terms of where he fits in. When I think about the Lincoln City first team right now, the team that I would like to see play, Ted Bishop is not in that. And he is a slick football player. I mentioned in an article the other day about how Danny Mandrew is a footballer. And when I say that, I always refer to Peter Gain. I always refer to players who had soft feet, good feet, quick feet, who understood the game and make it look effortless, who for me make art of football what Da Vinci was to art. Anybody can paint, and sometimes you have decorators. Do you know what I mean? Like the enforcers. Michael Bostwick, he was a decorator. That's what he was. He could slap the paint around, and he did it, as effectively as anybody. But it was the Da Vinci's, it was the Peter Gaines that add the detail, that add the beauty, that make you just go, oh. And for me, Danny Mandrew is that, and for me, Ted Bishop has the ability to be that as well. James Christopher, brilliant question. Has that Delican left. I was shocked to see he was even still contracted this coming year, but assumed he's gone or at least going. There's nothing official from the club. He hasn't featured at all in pre-season. He's still a Lincoln City player. My understanding is he didn't go to Spain. I had a conversation last season with a member of the coaching staff, and the inference for me was that Hakiba Delican didn't have a future at Lincoln City Football Club. Lovely guy, Hacks, softly spoken, nice guy. I'm not sure that he, in terms of application and in terms of anything else on the field, I'm not sure there's a League One footballer in there. For me, Hack's next move is to the next Wrexham or Notts County, an ambitious National League side who want a big name, are willing to pay some decent wages, want something to fans to go, he played in the Championship and now he's come to us and he's not 38 yet. That's the next move for me if he goes. If not, I think he's got 1 year left of his contract. Could be a long year for Hacks. Could be a long year. Ben Ward, I think Mandrew is going to be the key man for us this season. Must have read my blog the other day. Yes, there were friendlies, but he looked really sharp over pre-season. His finish against Boston was sublime. It was a great finish. I think we pointed that out. It was a smart finish. I like the lad. I said numerous times last season, Jeff Hughes came to this club, had a decent first season, but was just that. He was a player that you would go, might be all right. And then the following season, he was outstanding. Okay, he was outstanding in the 06-07 season when you've got Lee Frecklinton and Jamie Forrester and Mark Stallard all in the side. It was probably not as challenging to be as outstanding. But this season, you've got Danny Mandrew when he's got Ben House and Ethan Arahan and Alistair Smith in the side. Decent wing back behind him. Yeah, I like Danny Mandrew. I like him a lot. Big asset. And I think I picked him, Smith and Lass Sorensen as three who will rise to the levels that I believe O'Connor, Arahan and Ben House set at the end of last season. They were the three at the end of the last season that I looked at and went, there's the spine of a team that finishes in the top 10 of League One. We need the garnishing. Now, you've got Lass, who's been outstanding. Danny Mandrew, outstanding in pre-season. We know what he can do. And Alistair Smith, who I really am convinced will do the same. 6 outfield players, I think, are capable of taking a team into the top 6. You throw Jensen in there because the keeper there's your 7. It's only a 4 then. 2 centre-backs, left wing-back and a left winger. That's it. If players can step up and fill those positions, if we can find enough cover to sustain and let's face it, with the EFL Trophy and the FA Cup and the League Cup, 58-game season, you would hope. You've got to have a deep squad for that. Hence the likes of the trialists last night. Hence the likes of giving a lot of our younger players plenty of time in pre-season. The Ocean Gallaghers and the Jovan McCarmers. They may have to step up in these EFL Trophy games as well. There will be a time when we're going to give them a little bit of running, a little bit of time in the first team. Alicia Huey, who I think has had a decent pre-season, kind of like the look of him, can play left wing back as well. There's decisions to be made around those players. If they go out on loan, we bring others in to cover them. And that kind of answers my final question because I'm coming to the end of the walk. Steve Turner, do you think that we may have done all our business reference signings and now it's loan players that will bolster the squad? No, I don't. I would imagine that we are still looking to be aggressive in this transfer window. It really wouldn't surprise me if we don't buy a player for cash from a club. There's plenty of talk of going in for the Irish lad, Jack Moylan, I think. Might have his name slightly wrong. Tommy Lee at Accrington. Whether we are in for these players or not, the reports are there. The reports don't always come from nothing. And it wasn't a case of Lincoln City, Bolton and Ipswich are in for Jack Moylan when there are 3 clubs. The rule of 3, if a report says 3 clubs are interested in a player, it's likely to have come from an agent, it's likely to come from somebody trying to drum up interest, even the selling club. When it's Lincoln City have put a bid in for Tommy Lee at Accrington and it's been rejected, it's more likely to have foundation. It's stating an actual fact, not something ambiguous designed to big up the player. It feels solid. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And Ben says that Jez said there were 3 more positions to fill. I think we know that. I think there's a centre-back position. I think there's another wing position. And I think there's a central midfield position. I think they're the 3 that we look to fill. And it wouldn't surprise me if at least 2 of those are permanent deals. I get the impression that Harvey future, and the new American investors see assets, saleable assets, as a good thing to have for the football club. I think we've leveraged loans well in the past. I think in the past couple of seasons, perhaps we've seen the downside of the loan market. With the likes of Jack Diamond, who who flattered to deceive, didn't really impress, and then obviously left under a cloud. I thought Shadipo had a decent loan, Boys had a decent loan, but they weren't hugely impactful. Jordan Garrick was average, Matty Virtue was decent. Aside from goalkeepers, we haven't had a loan player who you've gone, he's been best by a mile. And even the season before, Luis Fiorini, decent loan, Brooke Norton-Cuffy, decent but half a season. I think they've been hit and miss. And for every decent loan player, for every player who goes on loan, was it Conor Bradley at Bolton, and you go, oh, he's a hell of a player, we should have got him. There are another 6 that have come from a Premier League side who have sat on the bench, who have left early, left in January at other clubs. So I think you get more for your money. I think you can get a higher caliber of player in for a season, but I think that we've been burned now season after season where good players have left the football club and we've had to replace them. We've replaced them with loans and we've trod water. You don't want your loan players keeping your permanent players ideally out of the squad, do you? And we had that. I seem to remember the last game of Michael Appleton's reign through. We had our own player, Max Sanders, sitting on the bench, and Luis Fiorini played. I like Luis Fiorini. Where is the value in playing a lone player in a dead rubber like that? Have a look at your own players. I think we've said it a lot. I think that's where we're probably going to go. No, I really appreciate you for joining me. My apologies for the little rant earlier about booing fans, but honestly, it's fucking mental. Don't do it. Don't do it at a pre-season friendly. It's absolutely ridiculous. There was nothing to be lost at all. I said last night was a win-win. I still stand by that. Players got minutes. We got to look at trialists. We moved a step further to fitness. Same on Saturday. I might go Saturday. It'll be the first pre-season friendly I've been to at home in few years, several years now. Last time I went there, Nathan Arnold was on the coaching staff at Boston, so that tells you how long it's been. But I might go, have a look. But you know what I won't do? I won't boo. No, I won't be doing that at all. I'll just be having a look, just soaking up some of the atmosphere. For the big games a week on Saturday, that's when it all matters. We're in decent shape. I've been looking at some 1 to 24s coming through. Very, very few people have got us around the bottom 4 this season. Last year, very, very few had us out of the bottom 6. What other people think of you is an indication of your progress, even if it isn't factual. And an indication of our progress is that we are now seen as an established League One side. One more season in this division will be the longest, will cap the longest spell that we've had in the 3rd tier ever, I believe, because we passed through it pretty quickly in the 60s. And in the 50s, obviously, we were in what is now the Championship. Long while ago. That's the aim. That's the destination. Fingers crossed. Quick one from Chef Sheffer. Your friends were booing at a friendly. Yeah, mate, just a quick catch up. Basically, we played Grimsby yesterday. We lost 2-0. It was a blend of youth trialists and fringe players, and the fans were booing. A very small section booed the players off at half time and full time. The mind boggles, doesn't it? The mind boggles. Imagine if they'd got Chanzeri as the chairman, they might have a right to boo with what he's doing at your club, but not here, not a friendly. Don't do it. Have a good day, people. Up the Imps.